Hello everyone, welcome to my presentation on the population decline of wild giraffes in Africa. So just some background information before we get started. The habitat that giraffes tend to live in is semi-arid areas in savanna, which is a somewhat dry climate, along with savanna woodland in Africa, and they're distributed pretty sporadically through the countries of Africa. They're pretty sociable animals, so they tend to live in groups of about 12, and they require a pretty big range of land for it to be their habitat. So more often than not, two different giraffe groups, their habitats will overlap, which doesn't really cause any interspecies competition or any problems like that because they are non-territorial animals. So they tend to just sort of live in harmony with other giraffes as long as food supplies are good and health is kept. In terms of reproduction, males mature around at age 7 and females at about age 4. The gestation period for a female pregnancy is 15 months, which requires a lot of nutrients and energy for the mother, so it's pretty investing time for the mother, and they produce very few but large offspring. A typical young is born at about 90 to 100 pounds. Their diet, they're herbivores. They eat plants and trees, more specifically the acai or acacia tree in Africa. That is the most nutrient tree to them. And this is actually pretty cool. So there was only thought to be one giraffe species across all Africa and 11 subspecies. So just all giraffes and then separate species or subspecies of these giraffes, but they're all just one species. But a recent study that was done, they performed a multi-locus analysis of different giraffes, and they found there to be 4 genetically distinct species of giraffes: the northern giraffe, the reticulated giraffe, the Maasai giraffe, and the southern giraffe. And within all of those giraffes are the subspecies. And there's little evidence that any of these 4 species interbreed. So a northern giraffe will breed with a northern giraffe, and a reticulated giraffe will breed with a reticulated giraffe. And this is thought to be, there's no specific reason that they found for it, but it is thought to be because of different reproductive timings, or because giraffes are pelage-based, which means they will mate based on another giraffe's skin, because they have specific patterns depending on what species they are. And even the subspecies tend to have different patterns too, but they will only breed with a giraffe that has the same pattern as them. Which, it contributes to the long history of reproductive isolation between giraffes. Okay, so are giraffes endangered? Yes, giraffes are incredibly endangered. Not scientifically, they're listed as vulnerable, but there's been a very steep decline of giraffes in the past decade. As you can see here, there's been a 40% in the last 30 years, and even from 1985 to 2016, it went from 163,000 giraffes to only 97,000 giraffes, which is it's a big decline. And then it's not, they call it a silent extinction because not a lot of people are recognizing it. A lot of people just are in the mindset that giraffes are everywhere. They're at the zoo, they're in the safari, they're all over Africa, but the reality is they're going to be endangered pretty soon. And then here I just have laid out the numbers of each of the giraffe species. This is as of 2016. Previously to this, sorry, that's my fan. Previously to this decline in the giraffe population, giraffes took up about 28 of the countries in Africa, but now they are currently extinct in 7 of those countries due to human development, urbanization of Africa. And you can see here that most of these countries that are listed are ones that are sort of on the map. They, are getting more touristy and more developed, which in return is killing off the giraffes and their habitats. Okay, so most of the reason that giraffes are going to be endangered is due to extrinsic factors, but there was one pretty cool intrinsic factors that I discovered, and it is the draft skin disease. It's not deadly. There's no evidence that proves that this is killing off drafts, because it's not. It's just a parasitic worm that is found in soils that contributes to these skin lesions that are found on the drafts. You can see them right here. They're pretty nasty, and they most of the time will develop a secondary infection in these skin lesions that, can lead to a more severe disease, but there is no data that proves that this actually kills off the drafts. But depending on where the draft is located, these lesions will be in different spots of their body. So in a Tanzania draft, which is like a country in Africa, that's not a type of draft, but just in this specific country, their legs are affected. So you can see here and here, and that threatens their mobility, and that in turn threatens their reaction time when faced with a predator. So even though they are not deadly, these lesions, they do have secondary effects. And especially in Uganda, the drafts in Uganda, their neck, as you can see here, and their shoulders are affected. See all of that right there? It's pretty nasty. And this is a big threat for males when trying to mate, because when males try to mate and they're fighting for a female, they battle with their necks. They'll just bash their necks against each other until either one runs off or the fight is over and the female has picked the most biological fit draft. And drafts with these lesions have a harder time using their neck and swinging it around, because these lesions are painful to the drafts. When they're getting hit over and over in the lesion, they, will give up on a fight sooner. That, in turn, that's leading to them not being able to find a mate as easy. So extrinsic factors, these are mostly environmental and more than likely human factors that are leading to this endangerment. Illegal and legal wildlife trade, human population growth, which is it's leading to competition for land and resources among the drafts, habitat loss due to deforestation for increase in area for livestock to graze, an increase in agriculture that's taking up land that would normally be a habitat for drafts, increased human-wildlife conflicts that plays back into that. Farmers are thinking that drafts are dangerous to their crops or their livestock, so they will feel free to shoot a draft if they feel it is threatening their crops or their livestock. And poaching. Poaching's a big one. They are sought to be very expensive. Like, you can kill them easily, get their meat, and sell it for a lot of money. But that's not all. Their bone marrow is thought to be a medicinal purpose for the cure of HIV or AIDS, which is just not true at all. Along with that, their tails are used as a indication of status. They're made into jewelry, and that sort of signifies that you're of high class because you're wearing a dead draft on you. Who wouldn't think that's high class? Okay, how is this affecting the life history of the draft? How is this posing a threat to the life history of a draft? How is this posing threats to reproductive cycles and their non-territorial behavior? So one of the main ones is an increase in stress. Now, when drafts are aroused in a stressful situation, they experience a reaction of their hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis that gets activated. They release a hormone called the glucocorticoid hormone, and this is just their natural response to stress. And when they're no longer stimulated, when they're no longer in a stressful situation, their HPA cease, their GC levels return back to normal. But what is being found common now is a lot of drafts are being translocated, so they're being captured and moved from their natural habitat to a conservative habitat where they have wires up so that the drafts are safe. But this was a big study that I read, and they found that when the drafts were unable to escape this stressful situation, their HPA activation has continued for a longer period of time. There's an elevation in the release of their hormones, and it's really hard for them to sort of get all this back intact after they're very stressed and all of these the adrenal glands are extremely activated and all the hormones are being released. And this has pretty long-term effects on the animals. It contributes to a decline in their overall health. They become more stressed. Their behavior comes a little bit more timid. They're a little bit more shy. They might not just hop back into reproduction. They might, still be a little bit stressed and a little bit worked up for a while. I believe, yeah. So here's a chart that I found from this website that went on and on about this study that they conducted, which is pretty cool. So over here, these are the levels of the this is FGCM, and that's how you can measure all of these activations and hormones being released. And these are the levels prior to being captured and transported. This is the day right before. As you can see, it's pretty low. Maybe something was happening here. They were interacting with humans a little bit more, getting more stressed out. And then this bar right here is the day that they're captured and transported. And as you could see, it's just a nonstop fluctuation of these stress levels. It's very hard for them to sort of get back to a relaxed state where they can behave as normal and act as a giraffe in the wild as normal, reproduce, find mates, be a part of a group. It's very hard for them to recover from these amounts of stress. And even not being transported, giraffes are still put under stress when they are in conflict with humans and when their land is taken away from them. So another thing that's contributing to the decline in the reproductive success of giraffes, or the life history portion of it, their food supplies are decreased, so their breeding is decreased. Normally, giraffes will migrate around their land, their very large homeland, to find their preferred trees. But when they cannot do this, either the trees they can't get to them, they're trapped or something. They'll eat whatever they can find, which puts them under nutritional stress. They are malnourished, and that leads to a struggle to survive, and consequently, less breeding within the giraffes. So, as they can't find the food that they would like, the acacia trees, they're malnourished and they are under a lot of stress and they can't breed in these situations. Along with that, the mothers actually, they travel away from their calves, their babies, to go and find food. And if a lot of their habitat is lost and not a lot of trees are left because they're losing their habitat, so more giraffes are scourging for more food that's closer, the mother may have to travel further from the young to find food for herself, and that increases the risks of the young being attacked by a predator because they're left alone for longer, they're more vulnerable without their mother, and this can have an effect on, if they will reproduce again, because it's a very energy costly situation when they reproduce. They only produce a couple offspring, and as it is, about 50% of their young is killed off by predators, but with them having to go further from their offspring and not being able to protect them if they're attacked, that even increases the risk of all of their offspring being killed off by predation. So the chain reaction of this, with less giraffes comes a decline in the acacia tree, because surprisingly, even though it seems sort of counterintuitive, when the giraffes eat the trees, it produces more nectar, which helps the tree thrive. Along with that leads to an ant colony decline, because when the tree is thriving, it provides a shelter for the ants and provides food for the ants. And when the ants decline on the tree, the beetles incline on the tree and eat away at the tree, therefore posing a threat to the health of the tree. Along with that, the oxpecker birds threatened. They eat the ticks off the necks of giraffes. So that's where they get their food from. The ticks on the giraffes are very healthy because they suck their blood. Obviously, the ticks are threatened for that same reason. Less food available for lion, crocodiles, hyenas, and leopards most of the time. But yeah, it's just a massive ecological chain reaction that would happen if giraffes were to go extinct. Conclusion, giraffes are on their way to silent extinction due to human activities mostly. The limited resources are posing stress on them, limiting their reproductive. That's all I have time for. Thanks for watching. Bye.